place, and is going to bring some perspective to the staying in financial flow as it relates to the supernatural and the super practical. I He has operated in this space for a long time. So let's pray this evening. Father, we thank you for today. We bless you. We appreciate you. We thank you for everyone being here. And I thank you for you are the one that has brought this series to bear. Help us to flow and stay in financial flow, because this is the year of abundance and overflowing lack, in Jesus' name. And so we are going to turn our brother Deji Iwogbemi, or I call Adedeji Iwogbemi, or Adedeji Ajay Iwogbemi. He's a great guy. So he's a public servant. He's also into the farming business, and he has a perspective and some things he told me concerning the voice of God and staying in that place will actually help us. My own is just to introduce him today. Anchor for today will come and take questions. That's for Sai Tresomokaru. Then Deji Igwegwemi is the facilitator for today. So let's welcome Deji Igwegwemi. So I will leave you, Deji, to your own. You have to carry your cross now. I've helped you to this stage. Help yourself.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Shalom, everyone. Good to have everyone on the call. It's a very rare privilege to be here this evening. And in a few minutes, I will try to see how I can do justice to the theme that is before us, staying in financial flow in times like this. I have titled what I'll be talking about tonight, Thriving Financially in Trying Times. The times that we're in call for some kind of extra knowledge, extra practice, knowing fully well that we have been prepared for such a time as this. I mean, coming from what we had last week from Pastor EC, very wonderful presentation, ministration, as it were, talking about faith, talking about strength, the supernatural, and the prosperity being a soulish thing, was a very wonderful time. So today we're just going to take it a notch higher, talking about the practicality of some of these things. And in very few slides, I will talk about what we need to do, what we need to be doing in times like this from the marketplace point of view. In trying times like this, there is the very urgent need to step back and wonder if we can live our lives the way we have always done. Matter of fact, people will tell you in the marketplace, this is the time to be careful, this is the time to check expenses and all that. And while they are correct, for those of us who are of the kingdom, we'll have to look at it in a different way. But then again, we live here as human beings, and we must also do things like every normal human being does, trusting that God will help us through. So the first thing I would like to talk about this evening, by way of starting, is to talk about the budget and how we need to make a budget in times like this. In times like this, we need to make a new decision as to how we want to budget. Do you want to look at your expenses? Naturally, you should slash your expenses. Things that used to be luxurious need to be checked so that you can go for things that are real, things that are necessary, things that are more important, if I will put it that way. So you cut costs without completing sacrificing quality. You don't go and start buying things that you know would not last, that you have to rebuy. But you need to slash your expenses. You need to look at things that are not exactly necessary for this time so that you can look at the reality of your finances a little bit more. Your monthly budget, which I believe everyone has, and if you didn't have, maybe it's a good time to start one. You need to rebuild your cost structure for the new reality that you're in. You need to look at it differently. What was I doing before that I shouldn't be doing anymore? How did I allocate my costs in the past? And how should I reallocate them in this present time? If you pay rent, if you pay levies, then you need to negotiate the payment in such a way that it is structured. You need to look at it differently now from when it used to be, I'll pay at X time, and it didn't matter whether other things were taken care of. So now you're going to have to look, do I have enough to do this at this time? And if I do not, then I need to negotiate. Human beings are born to negotiate to the smallest zero. So you have the ability to negotiate if you look at things that you cannot do at the present time. If you look at the book of Luke, I try as much as I can to limit the number of scriptures that I refer to, but then again, this is who we are, we can't hide away from it. It says that if you want to build a tower, Jesus speaking, won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? Lest you go and start the foundation and you're not able to finish, and people will ridicule you, saying this is the person that started and he cannot finish. So when you have expenses to negotiate, to navigate, the best thing to do, the first thing to do is to make a budget. When you make a budget, then you look at the expenses and prioritize them. Hierarchy of needs, or the one the economists will call the hierarchy of control, as to which one is more important and which one is less important, in that order. And that order should help you to be able to pick out the things that are necessary and the things that can be delayed for a little while. You should be able to look at this from the point of view that you are not, you cannot afford not to live your life comfortably. So I'm not saying here that you should reduce your comfort to the level where it now looks as if you are the only one who is living in these times. Because what people do when they are asked to make budgets is to say, you know what, it means that I have to cut to the barest minimum. And so you now have to start to live a life that everyone is asking a question as to, are you sure you're fine? That's not what we're saying here. I always tell people that it's good to save, but it's good to save as much as it's good to live a good life. So you cannot live a good life. You cannot live a life of savings while you are living a life of near hunger. So that's not what we're encouraging. We're just encouraging you to have a budget, cut your costs without completely sacrificing quality, and you can move from there. It is important that you plan to pay your bills on time. Plan to pay your debts. You cannot be owing and feel that you're doing well. Doing well means that you've been able to clear debt and you're able to face the future. A couple of weeks ago during the service, I remember Pastor was preaching. He talked about the fact that you don't compare somebody who has a million naira debt to pay and somebody who has 50,000 naira credit. It does not matter what you call the kind of life they are living. Living a life of debt is not a godly life. God did not bring us here to live without paying what we borrow. In Exodus 22:14, it says, if you borrow anything, it should be paid back. And if what you borrowed is, if for any reason when you borrowed the money, maybe what you were planning to do with it didn't work out, then you need to find a way to pay, because you cannot afford to say, everybody is owing. Government, they owe. Girl who know they owe. So at the end of the day, I'll live my life first before I talk of when I owe. I don't think that is godly. The godly thing to do is to ensure that every debt that you owe, you pay back. Pay back before you start to talk about the next level. The wicked borrows but does not pay back. The righteous is generous and gives. That's what Psalm 37 verse 21 says. You cannot afford to borrow people's money and live on it like it doesn't matter. After all, he has more money than me. What's this money to him? That's what some people say when they borrow money. When you are going to borrow money, when you're going to ask for help, it looks as if without this help, I'm going to die. When the help is rendered, you now start to say things like, I beg, I cannot kill myself. You knew you couldn't kill yourself when you asked for money. Please, no matter how bad things get, always pay back debts and pay your bills on time. Don't be owing NEPA and living life as if it does not matter. The day they come to disconnect you, now start saying people are wicked. Try to balance your life in a way that you are able to pay your bills and your levies on time. Don't allow people come to your shop where you are making a living and start to break things and start to cover everywhere before you remember that you have not paid your local government council fees. You should always pay your bills on time. It is when you don't do these things that when trouble comes, you start to run from pillar to post and you say it is the times. It is not actually the times. It is you have failed to plan when you were supposed to do the right thing. The next point is to multiply what you have. Diversify your investments. Get other streams of income. Always ensure that you don't look into only one direction. Again, I'm going to put a caveat. Things you don't understand, please don't invest in it. Don't start something because others are doing it, because the understanding that they have is not what you have. And in times like this, is the worst time for you to make investments that are not going to be returned. Because if you don't have ROI on anything at this point in time, it's going to plunge you into deeper messes. And that is not once what you want to do. If an investment sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. There is no point looking at it and saying, this thing, can it be true? Once you start to second guess yourself, it's time to step back and take a look at it again. Because when we say you diversify your investments and get other streams of income, Everybody's now looking for things to do. Pastor said earlier when he was introducing that I do a bit of farming. That's something that has made me understand that business in this part of the world is not something that works according to paper. What you see on paper, what you are taught in classes, and all of those things, they are not the practical thing on the reality in reality on the ground. You get on ground and you apply every of these principles, and you just say that it is not working. Meanwhile, you have gone ahead to borrow money, to take loans, and all that, and this thing was supposed to work, but here you are, it's not working. So what do you say? You say, "Oh, it reached my turn now, and everything scatter." Not necessarily. It's because when you start an investment, you need to understand what it is about, how to run with it. And when you are running with it, you run with it in levels. You don't just start and want to go straight to where somebody else who has been 20 years on the job is at. No matter how much money you have, if you plunge into it like that, you might crush, you might crumble. And the reality is that is when you start to say it is the economy that is hitting you. It actually is not the economy. It is you who has not understood that when you want to diversify your investments, you start from the known to the unknown. You start from the little things, you invest in the things that you can understand. Then when you have understood those, then you start taking it higher to the next levels. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Most times, this get rich quick syndrome, especially when things are not working well, when they have just taken out subsidy, when you have just looked at it to say, you know what, everything is going to go up in the next 3 weeks, everything is going to go up in the next 6 months. In 1 year's time, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pay my bills. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pay school fees. Landlord's rent is going to go up, so I need to do everything I can now. Then the little thing that you've had saved over the years, you now plunge it into an investment that you don't understand. You should be able to understand it before you start it. And again, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. So what I would advise you do is not be too quick to jump into an investment that you cannot understand. You have to plan your contingency and trust God. You must be ready to save. You must be ready to keep things for tomorrow. While you are keeping things for tomorrow, I said earlier, it doesn't mean that you should live a dead life today, because it is what you do today that will lead into a tomorrow. So you cannot be planning for tomorrow so much that you are useless today. So your today is important, but you must be ready to save for tomorrow. People at times when it looks as if the economy is not doing well, it looks as if all the subsidies and all the things that were used to cushion the effect of austerity have been taken away, people start to think differently. People start to imagine that this is the time to keep from to keep from being generous, to keep from loving God enough to be generous. Pastor says the generous person is righteous and the righteous person is generous. So to not exhibit your righteousness with generosity becomes a problem. But you have to plan contingency while you are still trusting God. You put God in charge of your work so that what you have planned will be able to take place. It's not you planning for God. It's you planning for yourself so that God will bring your plans to reality. But you can only do that when you put God in charge. You put God in charge to the extent that He's able to move you from where you are to where you want to go without necessarily making this your present time a hard one. You have to save up some part of your income, some part of your profit. You have to put it in for the contingency that is tomorrow. So you must be ready to save. On the first day of the week, on the first week of the month, on the last month of the week of the last week of the month, whatever it is that you know that you want to do as a business person, you have to have that plan that this is what I'm going to put aside. And when you put that aside, according to what have been taught before about tithing to yourself and tithing to the poor and all of those things, the fact that things are hard is not the time for you to say, you know, I can't give anything to anybody right now. It's just what I have and what I can keep for my tomorrow. That in itself is another evil, because when you start to hoard, the wicked that hoards, and when you start to hoard, it plunges you into what I call a panic mode. You get into a panic mode, and everything just seems not to be working. Everything else seems like it is at a standstill, and it's at that point that you now start to look for God that you should have put there from the very first. If you don't put God from the very first, and you get into that panic mode, then you start to rush after this same God that you didn't put in from the very beginning. Always put God as the one that is in charge of your work. Then all that you have planned will be able to take direction. Don't hoard your wealth. Like I said, it's the best time to give. Hoarded money is a sign of a stagnant soul. Only a stagnant person hoards. Don't hoard your wealth. That thing that you have that is looking as if you don't keep it to yourself now, one thing, just one bad business decision, just one thing can take everything away because God has never really been in it. So don't hurt. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 from verse 13, it says that I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, that where wealth that is hoarded to the harm of its owners, it comes to the harm of its owners, and wealth is lost through some misfortune. So that when you have children, there's nothing left for them to inherit. So at the end of the day, it's not the time for you to think that if I don't keep things to myself and myself and I, if I don't do that at this time, then I'm going to suffer. Keeping things to yourself does not necessarily guarantee tomorrow. It does not guarantee tomorrow. I tell you, if you use your worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you'll be welcome into eternal dwellings. That is Luke chapter 16, verse 9. Sometimes the good that you do, Pastor says it and I love it so much. He says it is that when you do good, it will come back to you. It did not say it is wherever you sow. It says whatever. What you sow is what you reap. It's not where you sow is where you reap. So the fact that you are hoarding now is because you are thinking that the people that you are supposed to give, they cannot help you. Meanwhile, it is the generous that becomes blessed. The Bible talks about the giver is always more blessed than the taker. But it is the truth. I tell you sincerely, I have understood this principle for quite a while. And I'll give you practical experiences that I have gone through. Once upon a time, without understanding as much as I do now, I got the principle of tithing very clearly. I tell people who I meet very quickly, I'm talking of 20 plus years ago. When I meet them very quickly, I'm very quick to talk about tithe. And people will be like, why are you always talking about tithe? And I'm like, you know what? Since I started tithing, I have never understood the God of blessings even more. God is not a kalu God. I want to make that very clear so that nobody is saying that I'm saying when you give 500,000 naira today, God is going to give you 5 million naira tomorrow in 10 times, in 20 times, because some people do this. You start to give God targets like 100 times over, 10 times over. That's not the God I'm talking about here. The God I'm talking about here is the God that blesses, not because he's a I don't know how you call it. It's like pool. It's not pool staking. So you are not going to God and saying, okay, God, I've been giving, because some people query God. You now start saying, God, even since all these things started, I've not hoarded. All I've been doing is to be giving God. I cannot suffer. You know what I have done. See what I have done. You have to bless me back and those kinds of things. That's not what I'm encouraging here. The reality of it is, this is my understanding, and I've seen it work for me. God does not bless you because he loves you. It's not because he loves you. He loves all of us, so he has released the blessings to everybody. He loves everybody equally. There's nothing like God loves this one more than this one because he gives more than him. No. But there's something I have learned about God. God he blesses because he trusts. So the question I want to ask you is, does God trust you? Does God trust you? Does he believe that this thing that I'm going to give to my daughter, this thing I'm going to give to my son, is going to be in trust, really? Is it in trust, or is it going to become something that is going to destroy them? So I was saying something about tithing so that I don't forget. I started doing this thing over 20 years ago. And I can tell you for free that in that period of time, I have never missed it once. I'm not talking of like, okay, I missed it and I got back tomorrow. No, I've never missed it once. And I've never seen myself go down from that time up until now. It has always been a better tomorrow. It has always been a better tomorrow. A better yesterday has never existed. How do I know? I have seen God take me from where I was to where I am without me believing that I could be there. There's something I tell people about. Do not forget the days you prayed for the things that you have today. There were times when you thought that you will never be where you are now. There you are now, but what you are doing is now beginning to second guess God. To not look at it like, is it really God or is it my hard work? It is when you start to think like that the spirit of hoarding starts to enter your spirit. It starts to enter your mind. It starts to enter your soul. It starts to enter into your full being. Then you that used to give when you didn't have so much, you are now finding it difficult to give because you are thinking that it is you that got here, and that if you are not careful with the money, then it will probably reduce and you go back to where you were before. And that's the place you don't want to be. Money is like manure. It's only good if you spread it around. When you don't spread it around, it doesn't help you. Do not ever forget that once upon a time, Nigeria was worse or Nigeria was better, regardless, depending on how you look at it. And yet you have survived up until this time. So what says that in 5 years' time, you will not look back at this time and say this was the best time that I could have done what I did to get to where I am now? So at times like this, I repeat, is the best time to give. A stagnant soul is the person that hoards. Don't hoard your money. Don't hoard your what you're giving. Don't quit tithing. Don't quit giving your teruma. Don't quit giving acts of service. Those things that you have always been doing. This is the time to do it the more. This is the time to do it the most. I'll give you some 2-3 examples and I'll just close this session. Once upon a time, I work in the public space and I have seen promotions come and go, and people believe that when you do certain kinds of things, that is when you are recognized and that is when you are promoted. Now, I come into my closet with God and I understand God the way He speaks to me. So I'm saying, God, you know what? I want you to speak to me the way you want me to go in this time. This is a season when everybody is saying, you know what? If you don't do a particular thing, you are not going to get rewarded. You are not going to get uplifted at your place of work. And this thing they're asking everyone to do is not a sin. There's nothing wrong with it. It's something I could have done. It's just like you need to pass through primary school before you get to secondary school. So somebody is saying you need to do this thing in order to go to the next level. And the next level, what is the attraction? The attraction for you is that you're going to make more money. All right. So you sit back and you ask yourself, the God that blesses me, is He going to bless me only because I move to the next level, or is going to bless me regardless of where I am? Because sometimes we think that God's blessing comes in the way that we think it should come. Pastor says something which I have worked with for the past 7-8 years. What do you really want? In this trying time that you are in, what do you want? Do you want to have money in your account so that you can be seeing it and saying, yes, this is me? Or you want the fact that every time you have a need, there is a meeting. Every time you have something to do, there is a provision. Because at the end of the day, if you have 100 million naira and I have 5 million naira, what you can do is what I can do. It is not in the volume. So what makes people want to have so much money is more of ego. It's more of self. It's more of you thinking, this is me. I just opened I go into the bank app, I see the balance, I smile at myself, then I switch it off again, just to give myself some level of joy and satisfaction. And if I've hit it up to 5 million naira, that's what I've been targeting. It means that everything that wants to take away from that 5 million that is my target, I'm going to resist it. I'm going to fight it. It is the reason why a lot of people cannot give tithe when they make more money. Because 10% of 2,000 naira is 200 naira is very easy to give. Or maybe it's easier. Let me not say it's very easy because some people still find it difficult. So let me say it's easier to give. It's easier to give 200 of 2,000. Matter of fact, it's easy to give 2,000 of 20,000. A time comes when it's easy to give 20,000 after 200,000. But how easy is it to give 20 million out of 200 million? The reason why I ask, does God trust you? Does God trust you enough to know that if you have 1 billion today, you give 100 million? Is it easy for you to not hoard when the resources are much? To whom much is given, much is required. Does it refer to you? Does that work in your life? Have you looked at yourself and believed that it's me? It's because I don't have it. It's because I don't have it. I agree. You don't have that big one now. That small one that you have now. How well are you spreading it around? Not wasting. So that people don't misunderstand me to say when you have money, you should waste. That's why I started by talking about savings. That's why I started by talking about getting other streams of income. That's why I started by saying you should pay your debts and pay your bills. All of these things are important. And as much as they're important, this is the best time to give. This is the best time not to withhold from releasing. Because when you release, it is not kalu, but when you release, there's that thing that makes it easy for God to believe that this my son, this my daughter is growing. And like I was saying, I have seen it work for me. I'm not saying this because I want to satisfy anything. I'm just saying it because I know that it works. If I'm telling you that it works, it is a practical thing. It's not a them tell me, it's not a they told me. The principles of God can, when people say things like there's nothing God cannot do. Do I disagree? No. I believe there's nothing God cannot do. But I believe there are certain things God will not do. He can do everything, but he will not do everything. It's my personal mantra. So I cannot leave everything in the hands of God when he has given me brain to do certain things for myself. Having said that, it is not because I don't want to have absolute trust in him. Because some people will misread this to mean that, okay, I can't trust God completely. No, I trust God completely, but I'm not leaving everything to him. So he's doing a lot for me that I cannot even see. But the one that he has given me ability to do for myself, then I should do. And one of them is that God will not give for me. He will not give for me. God will not give for me. God will, I've always told people, the devil does not tempt you to give. Every time that you hear a voice that is telling you to give, it can never be the devil. If you are looking for a way to hear from God, start hearing from giving. Because giving can never be the devil. He can never. The day you hear give, just know say this is God. If it is not God, then maybe it's your mind. And that your mind is in tune with God. But the moment you hear give and you're saying, are you sure this is God? There's a problem. You remember the Lord your God, for it is he that giveth the power to make wealth. Is it a practical reality for you? Do you believe it to the extent that you know that this wealth that I'm enjoying, it is God that gave me the ability to make it? You cannot look at God and say, God will violate his principles because of you. That's one of the things God does not do. He will not violate his principles for you. As long as the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest time will never cease. There's nothing you can do about it. So no matter how anointed you are, no matter how spiritual you get, there are certain things that if you don't do, you can't move from where you are to the next level. It does not, there's no gainsaying it. There's nobody that is going to convince you for you. That thing that is holding you from doing what you're supposed to do now, there's nobody that's going to change your mind. It is you. It takes your mind to change your mind. Until you renew that mind to be able to understand these things practically, you won't be able to do it. If you have never heard from God before, hear this one today now. That in this time, in these times that we are in, the easiest way to give yourself an insurance is to stay in God and give to the best of your abilities. You will be stagnant continually. You will be stagnant continually as long as you are a hoarder. So if you don't want to be stagnant, you have to stop hoarding. I say again, money is like manure. Only when you spread it around is it good. If you store manure at the back of your house, if rain and storm beats it, at the end of the day, you will not remember how good it is when you will send it away. When you spread it into the garden, it gets its job done. And that's how money is. When you spread it, it gets the job done. You cannot be alive and say it is because things are hard. It is because times are tough. That is why now all you want to do is to dig a 4x4, get it cemented and put tiles and start to keep money because of the rainy day. Money will fail. Money will fail. But giving never fails. Money will fail, but giving never fails. People have been known to have money and end poor. No giver ends poor. No giver ends poor. It is the best time to give. I emphasize this giving so much because it is a practical part of my life. I have seen things that otherwise, if it was not God, there's no way. So if I have made mistakes, financial mistakes, and I bounce back, I make another mistake and I bounce back. A time is going to come, I have to sit down back and say, what am I doing right and what am I not doing right? Then when you look at the things that you are not doing right, you are able to put one and think precept upon precept, step by step, on how you are going to grow from where you are to where you need to be. Because I don't want to spend so much time, I don't want to dwell on the basics of financial planning and all of those things. But I want to emphasize that you will save in order for you not to run into trouble tomorrow. It's very important. But in the midst of your saving, if there are things that you need to do that border around giving, that border around not hoarding, it takes precedence over the savings. It's a little bit difficult to accept that you have kept something for so and so time against tomorrow, and the time has come now. What I always ask people is, if you have saved for so and so time, why were you saving? Say, I was saving for tomorrow. Today is the tomorrow that yesterday was talking about. So if there's something to do with that money now, why are we holding back? It is when there is hardship, when there is turmoil, that's when it is easier to give, because what you have cannot even solve your problem. So I ask people, if I was talking about tithing, I ask people who don't tithe or people who argue gross versus net and all those things. I say, look, if I earn 5,000 naira and 4,500 cannot solve my problem because I paid 500 naira tithe, it means the 5,000 was never going to be sufficient. It's not better for God to owe me. So I tell people who don't understand this tithing thing personally, I say, my brother, if you don't understand, I can't help you. But the day I start arguing gross versus net versus do I tithe after tax, do I tithe before tax, it's just funny. What your salary cannot do because you took out tithe, because you took out teruma, I promise you that salary will not do it 100%. So it's not better for me to allow God to take responsibility, so that even if I thought that the money was not enough before, at least I give you God. I say, you don't take your own, you cannot leave me stranded. It's an understanding that is low, but it's an understanding that works. Because the higher you stay with God, the more you know that the giving that you are giving is not so that He will take care of you per se. Because He are taking care of you from the very beginning. You just need to walk into it. Then He's now saying, the thing that I have given you, how much of it can I trust you about? How much of it can I trust you with? How much of it can I trust you with? How can I look at you and know that for sure, this is my son, this is my daughter, is walking in understanding of who I am? The all-sufficient God, we talk about it all the time. The all-sufficient God, what does it mean? Is it something that we say just so that it can be said, or is something that we say because we believe it? All-sufficiency is all-sufficiency. It means that at no time can I have anything called lack. And when I begin to see lack in my life, I need to revisit it and say, God, what's going on here? This is not the agreement. And we are not querying God. We are just reminding Him of His promises. We are reminding Him of His responsibility, if I'll put it that way. It is not me that made myself. It is you that made me. It is you that said that this is who I'm going to be and this is what I have to do. And I'm doing it. So it's more like, God, play your part. God, play your part. And He plays His part absolutely all the time. He has never failed. He will never fail. He's not going to start with you. He's not going to start with the fact that Nigeria is in this kind of place. When you have not lived long enough, you will say there's nothing. You say, well, nobody has ever seen this thing before. There's nothing that has never been seen before. It's just that you came in a different era. And in that era where it happened before, people survived because they trusted. It is time for us to trust. Absolute trust. That's what Pastor Issy was talking about last week. Absolute trust. It's time for us to believe. Absolute belief. God is able is not a prayer. God is able is not a prayer. It's a statement of fact. It's a truth. It's a reality. He is always there. He is always there. He's going to do it whether you believe it or not. And when He's doing it for your neighbor, it's either you are looking at it and wondering there's something else the neighbor is doing, because we are very quick to say these kinds of things. If you trust God absolutely, He turns up for you. It turns up for you. When God tells you not to do something, I remember telling people that story I was saying that I didn't complete. I remember telling people at the time when everybody was saying, if you don't do this thing now, it's going to be like, it's going to be like. I said, I'm not going to do it. And I actually told somebody, I said, I'm not going to do it because that's not what God wants me to do at this time. He wants to make things easy for me. Anything that, for me, this is how it works. Anything that is difficult to do is not God. Because God is too simple. God is not hard. So anything that is hard, once I see that something is hard, I step back. Once I see that something is hard, I step back. I say, God cannot be here. God does not dwell in hard places. He dwells in soft places. So when people in the world say, the thing is soft, that is what it is. God dwells in soft places. He doesn't dwell in hard places. So once something is hard, you know it is not God. And to complete that particular story so that I can round off, at the end of the day, as the Bible says, in the fullness of time, when God was going to do it, he did it in such a way that it baffled even me, myself. Even me, if they had told me that this is how God is going to do it, I would have said it's a lie. It was not something I could have imagined. But when he did it, I stepped back and I'm like, awesome God. Nothing is impossible for you. And that is the reality I want to end us with this night. I have said before that there is nothing that God cannot do, but there's not everything that God is going to do. But at the end of the day, God is able is not a prayer. Shalom.
Wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. There's hot fire in the mountain. Bishop Deji, thank you so much. I'm sure our tables are shaking. Our tables are shaking. Please go ahead and drop your questions at the comment section. Bishop Deji has brought this session very succinctly, very easily, answering the questions in the heart of so many people. But some other questions have come in that we'll be pushing to you. Hope you can hear me. Please let me know at the comment section that you can hear me, please. Let me know at the comment section that you can hear me so that I'm sure I'm not talking to myself. Pastor Deji, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, I do. Okay, I'll just have to increase my voice. Please let me know if it's getting better. Okay, Pastor Deji, thank you so much. I've ordained you a pastor already. So Mama asked a question. He said, please explain these statements. I think it's when you were talking about investments. He said, explain this statement. If it feels too good to be true, it probably is true. He said, if it feels too good to be truth, it probably is true. So we need some explanation to that statement.
Okay, thank you, Osai. I think what I actually said is if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. It means it probably is too good to be true, not that it means it is true. What I'm saying is when something sounds unbelievable, it probably is unbelievable. So don't give it an excuse. Don't start to, for instance, when people did investments, if you remember the triple M investment, all those get rich quick investments, it looks unbelievable that somebody is going to,
Yeah.
invest 5,000 and in a couple of weeks he's going to get 100,000. What money market throws those kinds of figures around? It's unbelievable. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound possible, but people will go ahead and do it because X has done it and they have gotten something out of it. Y has done it and gotten something out of it. So those kinds of things that look too good to be true are probably not real. They're probably traps. They're probably things that you're going to get into trouble when you invest in. So when something looks too good to be true, it probably is. It probably is untrue. It probably is unbelievable. So do not do it. I think that's what I was trying to say.
Thank you so much. And Pastor JJ emphasized the fact that before you invest, first invest in the knowledge of the business before you invest your money. So we don't say, but Pastor Deji said we should go and invest, and you go and invest in things you don't understand. One of the principles of investment is that never invest in something that you don't know how the back end is working. Like he asked a question, what kind of money market throws around that kind of interest? So you must have an understanding of what the back end is doing, how the back end is working before you know. Then secondly, we need a definition, your definition of the word hoarding. Because the Bible said there is a time to give and there's a time to no, that's not the rendition. Now I'm trying to remember. Okay, the Bible talks about he who keeps much more than is necessary will tend to poverty. It means there is a necessity of how best to keep. So what's your explanation of hoarding?
Okay, every successful person by the world standards, what we measure success as, what we measure prosperity as in terms of pounds and pence, dollars and cents, naira and kobo, is a saver. You cannot progress in any line of endeavor to the level where you become successful without being a saver. Now, savers are not necessarily hoarders. Hoarders are those who do not have any person, any institution, any interest that they give to except themselves. Practically, I'll give you examples for ease of understanding. For ease of understanding, a hoarder is not somebody who does not have. It's somebody who has but finds it difficult to give. So whenever giving is spoken about, and sometimes when we talk about these things because of how church is, you tend to think that it is about church. No, let's take church out of this. You are not even giving in church, so your own is known. But we're talking about, okay, take for example, a group of 4 people, a group of 3, a group of 5, always going for lunch together, always doing everything together. And there are people in that group, there's a personality in that group that you would have known that for every time we eat, when it's time to pay, he's either looking for his wallet or he's trying to see if he's, something is wrong with his phone or something like that. He does not have it in him to give. Every time he's like, if now let me chop now for 50 people, these 4 people now want a runner. So he's looking for every opportunity to take his money for himself. We enter transport together. When it's time to pay, you are drawing leg to come out of the car so that those who are outside already will bring out the money. That's a hoarder. A hoarder is not somebody that doesn't have. It's somebody who giving is a problem for. Every time you talk about giving, the person just gets immediately sad. It's as if somebody has just touched him in the worst of places, in a bad spot. So that's who a hoarder is. A hoarder is somebody who wants to always keep for himself. He has 4 bags of rice. He doesn't want to release 1 cup because of tomorrow. Because this rice now, I don't know when I'll get another one. A hoarder is somebody who has 10 shoes. He has not worn some of them for the past 6 years, but he cannot let it go. A hoarder is somebody that has so much under his bed that he's not going to ever carry again for anything, but he cannot release it. The day he wants to change house, when people are saying things that he will still carry them inside a drum and move them to his new place, he just cannot release. That's who a hoarder is. Thank you.
Excellently. Yeah, there was a question that said, what about people who say they do not have? I am sure that your explanation answers it, but if there's something you still want to say, there are people who says, I do not have to give. What advice do you have for such people?
Okay, everyone has to give. Everyone has to give. Maybe not everyone has money to give, right? But everyone has to give. But specifically, the worst of all for all of this discussion is not because people do not have. It's because they want people to believe that they don't have. And those are the people who say things like, if I have, what is it? What is it? If I have, what is it? Meanwhile, the one you have, we're all church people. And, you ask yourself, I've asked this question before in a few places. If everybody thinks like you, if everybody gives like you, If everybody acts like you when it comes to giving, the institution that you belong to, will it be able to run? Now, let's look at percentages. Let's look at percentages. A man that has 100 million and gives 500,000, what's the percentage? A man that has 20,000 and gives 1,000, what's the percentage? Most times, the problem people have is that they believe that giving starts at a certain level. So, for instance, if there is a need somewhere, my small money cannot add any value. I wouldn't even be recognized. So there's a recognition problem. There's a recognition problem. People want to be recognized. So they think that until they can give that money that we shake everywhere, then it is not given. I don't even want to talk about the widow's mite, the Bible story, because everyone knows it, and yet it doesn't change anybody's mind. Because at the end of the day, it's more like a story it's like a fable. People just know it for knowing sake. It doesn't change anything. So when you are talking about it with people who don't give, they are not listening. They are looking at your head. They don't come. They won't convince me now. Nobody's trying to convince anybody. You have to give. You just don't like to give. So if you give, you are not giving because you have. You are giving because you like to give. If you are not giving, it's because you just have a problem with giving. And mind you, institutions run with or without the giving of others. So participating in the act of giving is helpful in the long run to you more than the institution, because without you, the institution will run. So there's everything in giving that is tied to opportunity. If you have an opportunity to give, you should be grateful, because there are people who want to give and the cost to which they want to give is not even available. I see it as a privilege and an opportunity most of the times when there is a call to give. And when there is a call to give does not mean when there's altar call. Because some people are waiting for the altar call. Unfortunately, for most of our people, Fem Foundation does not do altar call of giving. So the opportunity to give presents itself for people to give. If you want to give, there are opportunities everywhere. So that you are not giving is not because you don't have money, it's because you want people to believe that you don't have. So that it will now be like, okay, you can still get more, and now go to the category that we discussed earlier, who are the hoarders. So the small that you have, you are collecting more to add. So that everybody will say, this sister does not have, this brother does not have, so let us help them. So you are now the receptacle of other people's giving.
Wow. I'm happy this conversation. First, Papa, I want to thank you for the wisdom to put this together. Because if a pastor was telling us some of these things, some of us will begin to raise questions. The person speaking to us is one of the practitioners, is one of us. So, because we have this way we judge pastors, that the money is still going back to them. So when they're talking about giving, we don't glean the best of wisdom from it. But I'm particularly very excited that it's a church member that is getting to handle this teaching. And I want to appreciate you, Papa, for putting this together. Okay, Pastor Deji, I'm still going to ask this. There are people who will say that I appreciate the concept of budgeting. But most times I budget, I'm unable to live based on the budget, and it discourages me. And I just tell myself, I don't think I want to be going through this ritual at the end. I still will not follow the budget. I will, So what counsel do you have for such people?
Okay, thank you very much, Asai, for that question. It's a very topical issue that would be a symposium discussion, actually, because it takes a while to understand this budgeting thing. And everybody who practices or runs a budget will tell you that if you have never failed in your budget, that means you don't budget. Every budgeting person fails at the budget. What you budget versus your expenses, 90% of the time, don't ever align. But you see, that 10% is what grows. It is the fact that you're able to keep to that 10% of your budget and expenses sheet, like an inflow and an outflow kind of arrangement. And people should not budget in their heads. If you check the slide that I had, put a budget sample there. People like to budget in their heads. I've always said that if you go to market with money in
Wow. Is it my network? Holy Spirit, help us. Could it be my network?
budgeting should not be done in your mind. It should be done in pen and paper.
Yeah.
In this case, where you have tablet or you have phone, write it inside. Let it be something that guides you. I mean, in my home, I can use this as an example. I have booklets of budgets of the past 15 years on a monthly basis. Booklets that have finished, so you drop it. Because when you write inside phone, sometimes you can make mistakes, so you use pencil and biro to write. It's the old school way of budgeting. You budget it every month. It's not like because I did it last month, let me continue last month. No, last month and this month are not the same. Income may not differ so much,
Wow.
but things have varied. In last month, for instance, I bought 5 tin tomato and I used 2. For goodness sake, why am I buying 5 this month? The money I would have used to buy 5 this month can go into something else. So that means my budget will change. So budgets are dynamic. They are not static. Budgets are not based on income. They are based on expenses. Because if you base your budget on income, it means that if your income goes up, your expenses will go up. Rather than your expenses going up, your savings should actually go up. But because you budget based on income, it means that I have 500,000 naira to spend. That's what your budget is. But your budget should not be 500,000 naira to spend. It should be I have 300,000 worth of expenses to fulfill. So the moment I fulfill my expenses, what is left of my money is no longer part of expenditure. And that way you can keep for the next month, the upper month, and other months like that. That is why people are unable to keep things like house rent. People are unable to keep things like that. So when house rent comes, they say, I have emergency. How can house rent be emergency? There's no way. There is no way. It can never be. When I hear somebody talk like that, you cannot get help because you have not acted in ways that are consistent with someone who is reasoning. You cannot tell me that, oh, my house rent just came suddenly. My good God, for 12 months, suddenly? No. You have been planning a budget that is not based on expenses. When you have expenses to fulfill, you will have provision for it. But when you have provision, you don't spend everything because you have a budget. That is not a budget. That is a spender's list. It's a spender's list. You are just looking for a way to exhaust the money. Are you government who is about to finish their term and they need to finish money? You are not government, so you are not finishing money. You are meeting expense. You are not looking for how to finish your income. So budgeting is never absolute. You cannot be absolute. Okay. You cannot say I budgeted 5,000, I spent 5,000. That one I will give you, I will hail you. I will hail you like, okay, your own good. But I'm looking for somebody who budgeted 5,000 and spent 3,000. I'm looking for somebody who budgeted 5,000 and spent 8,000. When he spent the 8,000, he will sit back and understand why. That his failure will not happen the next month. But if it continues to happen, then you need to come for some kind of inner healing and some kind of counseling because there's something wrong somewhere. So, like I said, it's a symposium discussion. It's not something that we can handle in this small time, but I hope that this will help us.
I was going to say that now that, Reverend, after this time, we have to come up with possibly a physical session that may be more elaborate, where we have 4 to 5 hours, a whole day of looking at these things, both from what Pastor Isi shared last week, from this, what Papa would call supernatural and super practical sessions. So we need to be able to do that. We have very short time. I don't know whether everyone wants to say something. I actually wanted to ask one more question. Then let's allow.
Ozai, go ahead and just Go ahead, ask the question so that we have about 5 minutes more to round up.
Yeah. While you were teaching, Pastor Deji, you talked about budgeting, you talked about paying up your bills, you talked about multiplying what you have, then you talked about saving for tomorrow. But I want to take you on paying up your bills. Because sometimes I see people when they are in their need, they can do anything to get you to help them with a promise, like what we call that they will pay back. But when you are going after them to pay back, there is this lackadaisical disposition. But you should know that I don't have now. So these persons conclude to themselves that they truly don't have. So why are you troubling me? Couldn't you just let's see that I don't have? And they use some kind of comments. So what advice do you have for such people? And what advice do you have for such people who have given this kind of persons money? In 2 minutes, so our time is wrapping up.
All right, thank you so much, Osai. I'll answer this question in two folds. If you are not a professional lender, then you should be mindful of the kinds of people that you lend money to. Debtors are what they are called. Debtors. It's a professional job, even though people don't get certificated for it. So when people are debtors who speak like that, who say things like, but you know now, if I get money, I don't pay. Not they use this kind of thing, they rob me. How much was something that when you were going to get, you were ready to sign an agreement, you were ready to go to court and swear, you were ready to do anything just so that you can get that help. Now you have gotten the help, and it's more like you are now in the driver's seat to the person who gave you the help at the time. Having said that, when you lend to family, when you lend to friends, when you lend to colleagues and associates, people who you know you are not ready to go the whole length with, as you are not a professional lender, like I said before, that's the second side of the story. Lend what you can forgo. So no matter what I'm telling you, Osai, that my problem is, most times a professional debtor does not tell you the exact amount that he's looking for because he doesn't expect you to give him. So he's telling you times 10, maybe, times 5. So by the time you now use your mind to cut it, what you are giving him is exactly what he expected of you. Now, what you cannot forgo, do not lend out. Except, like I said, you're a professional lender. Because professional lenders will go any length to get their money back. But you that is a normal good guy, who is just trying to help, who knows that you cannot even ask. Just before I left office today, somebody was telling me how somebody came and asked him for 11 million naira in the midnight. Called him in the midnight and was asking for 11 million. He said, oh, where am I going to see this kind of money? But when he now felt that the pressure was too much, he now gave 1 million. On Saturday, they had discussed money at all in the past. So it's as if he has forgotten about the fact that he collected 1 million from me. And he told me something. He said, my mom told me that money that I cannot dash somebody, I should not give. I said, that's good. Your mom was very wise. So that means you are capable of dashing 1 million. He said, it's not as if he's capable, but at least he will leave it so that there will be no problem. My point exactly is somebody that asked for 11 million. Imagine if you had 11 million and you gave him. Now he collected 1 million, he's not talking about you. So that's why I wanted to collect 11 million and not talk. So the point I'm making is debtors, the act of being a debtor is a skill. Not everybody has it. For some people, they cannot collect cleaner from you in the morning. When they get home and they find it with them, they are itching tomorrow to come and give you back. They have not entered the spirit of debtors. Until you become a professional at owing, you will ask that person that is owing you, will start counting for you. Now only you are they owe this person, are they owe this person, are they owe this person, they never call me. Why is it now only you they call me? It now tells you that is his profession.
Those are the people that use words like even federal government. Extra. Somebody just asked, what's your advice on body to someone who is a spontaneous spender?
Okay. First of all, the English language helps us to adorn bad character with very sweet words. So somebody who is irresponsible will now say, I'm a spontaneous spender. So that it gives him a good outlook. There's nothing like being a spontaneous spender. You are just irresponsible. Why do you buy what you don't need? It's a level of irresponsibility.
Impulse.
Somebody will say, I'm an impulsive buyer. It has no real meaning. It is foolishness just being garnished. You cannot be impulsive at spending money that you don't have. Even those who have it are not impulsive spenders. It is irresponsibility at a level. However, my advice to such people who have such problems is budget, one, carry less cash on your person. These days, we are a cashless economy. Go and get a utility card. Stop carrying your ATM card all over the place that contains all your money. Or make sure that your savings account is not tied to a card. Make sure that you don't have internet banking on it. You cannot make transfer. And operate with a utility card. A utility card is a card that you can move all your budget expense cost into at the end of the month, end of the week, depending on how you run. So if, for instance, you didn't want to spend more than 150,000 naira in a month, you will move 150,000 into utility card and you'll be moving it around. Years ago, I used to tell people that I don't buy a recharge card without planning. So if I'm talking to you and my credit finishes with the last recharge card for the month, my brother, the next time I will talk to you is next month, except you call me. People say, oh, what's that? How much is recharge card? I say, what are you saying? What do you mean by how much is recharge card? What do you mean by how much is recharge card? Recharge card and data is one of the most economically viable tools of the entrepreneurs now. If people are not selling cards, then they are selling data.
Yeah.
Somebody that is selling data, you think he does not know what is inside? Then it is me you want to use to open shop? No. How do you call somebody just to say, I say, man, I hail you? Then when they tell you, say, waiting days, how many 200 naira when I just take call? No. That's spontaneous spending that is irresponsible. And when you start telling people about this, they say, now because I not get money, make you they tell me. Those that have money that you are looking up to, this is not how they live their lives. They don't use data anyhow. They don't call people anyhow. But you that does not have, you will buy 15,000 naira data of MTN, you'll be watching YouTube and watching TikTok. I'm sorry if what I'm saying here today is sounding too harsh, but it's just the fact that the reality of this time means that people need to think differently.
Yeah.
If you don't think differently,
we need
by the time the will hit you, it will hit us as your family members, and we don't want it to hit us. So let all of us be walking wisdom now. Let us be walking wisdom. As you are walking, wisdom is walking. As you are moving, wisdom is moving. Shalom.
Deji, we have to
yeah, like I said, no pastor could have given it raw like this. So thank you, Bishop Deji.
Osai, thank you so much.
Let's wrap it up.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Pastor.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
It's been a wonderful time. Thank you, Osai, for anchoring the question. You left me here, Osai, before, but God arrested you for me. You are here with me now. And Deji, we need to cage you very well so that we don't lose you and cause harm to people. But that is a good harm you are causing. And so finance is a combination of so many things. And what we are hearing now is wisdom. Wisdom is necessary for that. And take this cancer. This recording is on YouTube, so you can go over it again. Share the links to others. The Adullam School of Business and Economy Policy continues next week on Tuesday. And that week, Osai Omokari, Trezor Omokari will be taking us as the people that someone who has helped people manage their finances, raise businesses, and still coaching people in that line. A former banker is also here, and how he navigated from that place of having fear to face the future, and working out alone to do some things. You will hear about his what he went through, the mistakes he made, some of the things he's working out, and how he's also being a business coach in places and helping people to raise finances for their small businesses. It's been a wonderful time, Deji. Thank you so much for this exposition. It's an eye opener and giving us your personal stories. And for every one of us here, tomorrow, next week will be a wonderful time. Brother Osayi will be here by next week. And the fourth week, I will have my friend here, who is the executive director of Stanbic IBTC, will be here as a financial expert, coming to add some other flavors to it. It's going to be a wonderful time. So please get involved and invite your friends. From us here, Osayi, what do you have to say? Your final word?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's much more practical than just words. So we have heard that by hearing is not enough. The true knowledge is when you apply. Somebody said the expert is, you are not an expert because you know. You are an expert because you know how. So you're going to become an expert in managing your money and living in financial. The how that has been shown to us today, you begin to put. So don't say because you attended this class, things has changed. Things begin to change by the actions you take. So that's my parting word to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Deji, what is your parting word for us so that we can?
Thank you so much, Pastor. Once again, I want to thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to be here, to be able to speak to people. The good thing about this platform is that because I'm on the facilitator side, I don't see those who are in the class. But I want to thank everyone who has tuned into this class. It should have been a little bit softer, but I don't know. I think as time went on, it just started getting hotter and hotter. But I mean, the basic thing is the times that we have always feared the most are upon us as Nigerians, and it is world over. And the ones who have been prepared the most for this time are those of us who are kingdom people. We don't want to end like those who were not warned or who do not have hope. We have hope. We have assurance that God is on our side and is going to do for us something that it will marvel those around us. But while he's doing his job, let's also try to do ours. And may God give us the grace to continue to do that in Jesus' name.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Osayi, next week we have you, and Deji becomes the facilitator for next week. I appreciate you. I will be here again. Thank you so much, and God bless you, everyone. Share the links and invite them to YouTube Fem Foundation channel, and you have it. Father, we thank you for today. We just pray that it will not be hearers alone, but be doers. That even when we make a mistake, we'll pick up ourselves and move forward again. We ask that you will release your wisdom that is pure to come upon us, and we'll move together as family. As Deji said, one is affected, all is affected. But also when one is blessed, everyone also shares from the blessing. May that become our testimony in Jesus' mighty name. God bless you. Have a great day. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone. Have a nice evening. Shalom.